Wouldn't it be nice if you could easily relight your photos in post-processing? With Luminar Neo's Studio Light tool, you can have the tools that give you a lot of control to change the light on your subject. That includes adding multiple light sources with different qualities for the amount, direction, color, and character of the light. Hi, my name is William Beam. I'm best known for helping photographers get value from their post-processing and organizational tools. If you don't have Luminar Neo yet, you can save 10% using my coupon code BEAM10OFF. I'll have a link to that in the description below. All right, why don't we go ahead and get started? All right, so we're in Luminar Neo, and I'm currently using version 1.18.2. You need to have at least 1.13 in order to use the Studio Light tool. So you'll find that down here underneath Portrait, Studio Light. So I've got a raw file here. This is my friend Shelly, and let's click on that. Right off the bat, nothing changes. You first have to add an amount of light. And let's just go that to 25%. So you can see right off the bat, it added something. What you need to do next is hover over the photograph. You'll see a white spot. And as you move that around, that will change the position or the source of where the light's coming from. You want to work with the light that you already have with your photograph. On this photo, there's two light sources. There's a key light that is lighting her from this side, her left. And if you look on her cheek down here, you can see that I've also got a kicker light that's doing a little bit of cross lighting there. So for portraits, cross lighting can typically work. You might be able to enhance this a little bit with multiple light sources in here. So on this side, you can see you can add a plus button. But for this one, we're going to start off pretty simple and just work with one light source. So as I said, take this and move it around the image and just see how the light affects her and get what you want out of it. Now, it's going to default with a brightness here in the center. You may want to pull that down a little bit. And as you do that, look at the background, how it's also getting darker, but then you see that there's a little bit more light on her face. But she's also gotten darker in a couple places. So what we can do there is we can take a look at the depth slider, and that will kind of show you how much is the light shining. So it's not necessarily just getting brighter on her face. You'll see also down here on her hoodie, as we add that depth, it's kind of extending the light. And as you do these things, you may want to move the light source around depending on the look that you want. I kind of want the light on her face. So I'm going to pretend that this was set right about here, because I still like having the shadow that kind of sculpts and defines her face. And I find that for portraits, it kind of works best at eye level. So you can change the brightness of this. The smoothness is whether you're going to have the character of light that is it a hard light or a soft light. So if you move this all the way over, which I wouldn't recommend that you do, you see how that really made her look creepy. That's going to be your hard light. I would say probably you want to go at least 15 or 20 on the hard light end. But if you take smoothness all the way over to the other side, it really flattens her out and it kind of plays with her skin. That's going to be your softest light. On this one, I would recommend that maybe no more than 80 to 85. So I do want a soft light look for this one, so I'm going to go over here to about 70. We have a slider here for light contrast. And as I move this over, you're going to see how it kind of darkens the image up, except for where that light is. So you might want to use this to darken your background, get the light where you want it, and maybe then you can play with the depth to brighten up your subject. So those are just a quick look at most of the tools that you're probably working with. So let's take a look at a before and after. So we've kind of changed that. Now, if you don't like the way it looks over here, like I said, you can move this around. Maybe if you want to put more light on her face. And instead of the flat image, we've really got something that kind of draws her out. If you've got too much darkness in the background, just move this light contrast back, bring it up a little bit. And as we see before and after, we've really kind of changed things out. Also, you notice that it's got a lot of brightness on her nose. If you want to, you can come over here to masking. We can get a brush. Let me change the size of that a little bit. And I'm going to hold down the erase over here because I want to take some of that mask off of her nose. And I did that at 100% strength. Let me bring this down a little bit. So that way, I'm going to try that again. So I brought the strength of the mask down, or the erasing of the mask down to about 50%. And I just kind of want to touch this just a little bit. And that takes some of the shine off of her nose. So again, you can see before and after. And that's kind of an overview of what you can do with this tool. But there are a few other things. We're going to come back over here to adjustments. And notice I didn't touch on the hue and saturation yet. We're going to look at that in the next image. All right, so this is a window light portrait. She's just sitting, in the window. There's a lot of warmth in the background. And you notice that her skin is rather fair. I was thinking, what if we were to put some warmth on her from this studio light? So I've got this little dot over here, and you can see how the light is affecting her. We haven't even turned on the amount yet. So let's put up a little bit, let's say about 20. And what I want to do now, before I start playing with these other sliders, is bring up the saturation. And that will start to add some color to the light. And if you notice this little square over here changed from white, when the saturation was all the way down, it's white light. As I bring it up, it adds whatever hue you've selected. So I want to get something kind of in the yellow spectrum, and I'm going to bring it up quite a way. And that's going to add some warmth to her. So let's take a look at before and after. And you can see how that warmth is rather subtle. And notice that the dot here also changes. It lets you know that this particular source of light has a color cast to it. And we can move this around and see where we like it. Obviously, I want to keep it on this side because that's where the light is coming from. You notice the shadow on her cheek over here. So just like that, we've kind of added a little bit of warmth to her. Luminar Neo is looking for a portrait subject because this is a portrait tool. As I move this light around, you notice it's not really affecting the background. It is affecting our subject right here. So you can see it on her face as I move back and forth. And I want the direction of light coming from over here. I've got the color coming over here. And then now, if we want to, we can play with the depth to see how much that goes across. So if I bring it down, it doesn't affect her face that much because the depth isn't extending out from that dot, which represents our light source. So as I bring this out more, it will cover more of her body. So that's what we're looking at with this particular image. Now, again, we can play with a light contrast. If you wanted to darken that background a little bit, I don't think I'd want to darken it very much here. And then we can also change the brightness. Let's say that I want to bring her down with that brightness. I'm going to bring the smoothness up because I'm looking for a soft light source. And I probably want to bring the depth up just a little bit more on this image to give her that kind of look. So I'm always playing with this light source just to see, after I've made some of those changes, does it work better someplace else? And let's take a look at, here's our before image, and here's our after. Now, whether you like the before image better or not is a matter of taste. Whether you like this amount of saturation or not is a matter of taste. But those are some capabilities that you have that can really work out to your advantage to just really relight a photograph. All right, this is my old dog Milo. Sadly, Milo's not with us anymore. It's not a black and white photo. Milo is a white lab, which is really just a very, very light yellow lab. Let me zoom in a little bit here. You can see just a little bit of pink right there above his eye. You can see the color cast from his ears. This is not a black and white photo. This is just the way he looks on a black background. So I'm going to bring up my amount and about 30. And I'm going to start playing with my light source. Since the photograph seems to have some more light coming from this side, and if you're not sure about that, always take this down. And you can see that the light is over here in the way the photograph was, and there's more shadow on this side. So that's why I want to move my slider over. I'm going to bring this up, like I said, to about 30. I'm going to bring the brightness down. And I'm going to do something to poor Milo that I probably wouldn't ordinarily do. And that is, I'm going to put some color on him. So I'm going to bring my saturation way up. And I'm going to bring this up too much because I want to emulate the idea of putting some gels on him. So the first thing I do is I bring this up, and then I want to find out, where do I want the depth? So the thing with, if you're doing gels, you may not necessarily want to cover your entire subject. You may want to do another light source and put a different color gel on a different side. So we've got that. And let's click this plus button. So now you can see we've got another light source over here. I'm going to bring it to this side. I'm going to add an amount. And if you notice, we've got a split kind of tone look already. So you can see the lighting over here and then the lighting over there meeting in the middle. And if you want to come up with split lighting, that's one way to do it. So now that I've got this one selected, I'm going to give him a blue color cast. And that just kind of gives you a way that if you want to add gels, you can move the lighting around. And you can change kind of your direction. So let's say that instead of the split down the middle, maybe you want it top and bottom. You can change the depth for the light source that you have. And it just gives you different ways that you can kind of play with the color of your lighting. So you've got the direction of lighting. We've got our depth that shows, how far in it's going. Our quantity of light with both the amount and the brightness. So if we bring this brightness up, it'll really kind of overexpose him. But it's just a way that not only can you add more light to a subject, you can also do a little bit of work to put some color on there. You can add some contrast and some shadows. So it's kind of an interesting way to do it. I'm going to reset this, and we're going to go back to just this one light. Let me bring up an amount right about there. And you notice how the contrast is starting right here because that's where the depth is. If I bring this over here, it lights a little bit further. If I bring it back, it really shadows that down. The light contrast in this case might darken him up a little bit. It depends on what kind of look you're going for. So you can have something coming from above, or maybe straight on, like right between his eyes, and then kind of let him fall into shadow. You can get some really creative looks just playing with these sliders. Now, one thing we haven't looked at yet is light customization. So let me open this up. You'll notice that it looks like there are stripes on him. So when you come down here, there are a few different things. You've got texture and pattern. So let's start with pattern. It always defaults to strips. You can also have dots, but I'm going to set this to none. And what you can do now is you can choose a texture. Let's say that we wanted to have, like he was behind some shutters, on window shutters. You could choose that, and then you can scale this. So as we bring it all the way down over here, you'll see the shutters have that pattern. And then as you expand it out, they get larger and larger. I really wouldn't do this on a portrait, not even for poor Milo here, but you might want to do something like this if you're doing, let's say, some tabletop kind of photos, and you've got a set, maybe with a cup of coffee or some bread or fruit, whatever it is, and then you want to have like window light coming in. So you've got shutters, you've got other patterns down here, tree shadows and so forth, vintage windows. And like I said, I don't really like these for portraits, but the possibility is there. And then you also have this where you can kind of change the pattern of where those lights are coming from with the shutters. So now that I've shown you that, I'm going to turn this off, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at how to use that on the next photo. All right, so this is a portrait of a couple that was taken on a backdrop. So in other words, this forest isn't real. This is a painted backdrop, and they're just dressed as characters. So you notice that we've got branches and trees. It looks like they're deep in the forest, but there are no shadows on them from the branches or trees. That is where your light customization could come into play. So I'm going to bring this light square up here. I'm going to add a little bit of an amount just to kind of get it started. And now I'm going to open up light customization. So I'm going to come over here to texture, and I'm going to choose probably either greenery or tree shadows. Let's go with tree shadows for this one. And this is where you can see on their skin, as I'm moving this around, different shadows. And they're rather subtle, which is good. You don't want them too much. What I'm looking at as I'm doing this is the female's face. I don't really want to have the shadows like right here. You can see that on there. I want to have where she has, really no reflection on there. And part of that could also be where the source of the light is. As you move this around, That could be something that affects it. But also on this position over here, that's what is affecting the shadows. So we've got the light that's on them and then the position of the shadows. Since the light is kind of coming from above, its default position over here was really pretty close to where I wanted it. And I'm just moving this around. So I've got some very subtle shadows on her and on him as well. And to show that, let's look at before and after. And you can kind of see how those patterns affect this. It's a very subtle thing to do, but it kind of puts them in the place where they are with this background. Now we can also change the color cast. I don't really want to do too much on here, but let's bring the saturation up a little bit. And what I want to do here is add some color contrast. You see, I've got a very light yellow. That light is affecting our subjects. And I want to have some contrast between warm human bodies and the cool forest background. So as we bring this up, you can see that we've got just such a subtle change, but you can see that it's really kind of bringing out some texture in there. And we can change this again with our brightness. We can bring the smoothness down to get maybe a harder look on the light. And we can also use our light contrast if we wanted to bring down the overall image. And on this one, I think it gets dark enough. I don't really want to do that. But that gives you some options. We can also bring our depth up so the light is affecting more of them, but particularly since I have two people right here. And that just kind of gives us from this to this. So a little bit of warmth and also some very subtle shadows that shows them, inside of that forest environment. All right, now that you've seen the power of Studio Light and Luminar Neo, I hope you'll give it a try. Thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful to you. If you want Luminar Neo and don't have it, remember I've got that coupon code to save 10%. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.